Join ForumIAS Academy, trusted by hundreds of toppers, including IAS Rank 1 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥 Sharma.
Good evening, aspirants. Welcome to the Hindu News Analysis discussion brought to you by ForumIAS for the date 7th of September 2023. These are the list of news articles for today's discussion. We will be covering 5 topics from international relations, governance, and a topic from economics. Alongside this, we will also be covering 2 previous year prelims questions at the end of the discussion. So straight away, let us move to our first article. First topic: ASEAN, a key pillar of Act East policy, says Modi. Prime Minister Narendra Modi recently mentioned that the Association of Southeast Asian Nations is an important pillar of India's Act East policy. So in this context, let us know about ASEAN from prelims angle. See, ASEAN is a 10-member regional intergovernmental organization. It is aiming to promote economic, political, security, military, educational, and socio-cultural integration between its members and other countries in Asia. Know that it was established in the year 1967 in Bangkok with the signing of ASEAN Declaration, which is also known as Bangkok Declaration by its founding members. Now, if we take the Secretariat of ASEAN is located in Jakarta, Indonesia. It has 5 founding members, namely Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand. Later, 5 more members were added, which includes Brunei, Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar, and Cambodia, making up what is today the 10 member states of ASEAN. If we take the ASEAN Charter, it is a legally binding document that entered into force in the year 2008 at the presence of ASEAN foreign ministers. Now, coming to the institutional mechanism, the chairmanship of ASEAN rotates annually based on the alphabetical order of English names of member states. Know that ASEAN Summit is held twice a year and it is the supreme policy-making body of ASEAN. This summit sets the direction of its policies and objectives. Now, if we take ASEAN-led forum, first is the ASEAN Regional Forum. It was established in the year 1994. And the ASEAN Regional Forum is 27-member grouping which provides a platform for security dialogue and develop cooperative measures to enhance peace and security in Indo-Pacific region. Also, the ARF, which is the ASEAN Regional Forum, is chaired by the ASEAN Chair of that year. Alongside this, let us also know about East Asia Summit. See, it is a premier leaders-led forum held annually, and it was started in the year 2005 with Kuala Lumpur Declaration. The purpose of the summit is for dialogue and cooperation on issues of common interest to promote peace, stability, and economic prosperity in East Asia. Now, if we take the priority areas of East Asia Summit, there are 6 priority areas of regional cooperation within the framework of EAS, which includes environment and energy, education, finance, global health issues and pandemic diseases, natural disaster management, and Asian connectivity. Then EAS, which is the East Asia Summit, comprises of 18 participating countries, including the 10 ASEAN member states and then 8 more countries, namely Australia, China, India, Japan, New Zealand, South Korea. And know that United States and Russia joined at the 6th East Asia Summit in Bali in the year 2011. Another well-known group is the ASEAN Plus 3. The group started in the year 1997, which brings together ASEAN 10 members and China, Japan, and South Korea. And 2 months back, there was a news associated with ASEAN that India and ASEAN have agreed to conclude the review of ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement by the year 2025. See, ASEAN-India Trade in Goods Agreement is a trade deal that was signed in the year 2009 The agreement covers trade in physical goods and products, but however, it does not apply to trade in services. Also know that the ASEAN and India signed a separate ASEAN-India Trade in Services Agreement in the year 2014. Alongside with ASEAN-India Investment Agreement, the three agreements are collectively known as ASEAN-India Free Trade Area. So that is all about ASEAN, and in this discussion we also saw about East Asia Summit. Alongside that, we also saw about the ASEAN-India Free Trade Area. So with this, let us close this topic and move to the second topic of the day. Second topic, bridging the malnutrition gap, the Bematara way. See, over the years, government had made several efforts to ensure food security. Now, children have midday meals in their schools and people receive monthly rations through ever improving public distribution system. Also, under the Prime Minister's Poshan Abhiyan, which is the Prime Minister's overarching scheme for holistic nourishment, ready-to-eat packets and hot meals are served to mothers and children at Anganwadis. Further, various add-ons such as egg, banana, protein powders, peanuts and jaggery are also being distributed under various state-specific schemes. An example being the Mukhyamantri Suposhan Yojana in Chhattisgarh. But nutrition security is still a distant dream. This is because people often lack knowledge of proper eating and feeding practices. Then there are myths around food, and increased accessibility to highly processed food have compounded the problem. For all these things, nutrition counseling can potentially be the answer to this problem. Also, it is important to note that Jan Andolan or social and behavioral change communication has been a facet of Poshan Abhiyan. This includes bicycle rallies, Poshan Vatikas, celebration of Poshan Ma, Poshan Pakwaras, and also we have to take note of the fact that different states have held various awareness programs under the SBCC, which is the Social and Behavioral Change Communication. However, the concept of nutrition counseling has yet to be properly institutionalized and implemented uniformly across states. In fact, according to the Poshan Abhiyan Progress Report 2018, a focused and a coherent SBCC action of plan is essential to take the work of Poshan Abhiyan forward. Thus, we should acknowledge that there is a need for the field staff to be properly trained in nutritional counseling, and there is a need for it to be implemented mandatorily and uniformly across states. Now, if we take the lessons from Bematara, see, Bematara is a district in Chhattisgarh, which is a puzzling district in the context of its malnutrition status. This district, situated in the fertile plains of Chhattisgarh, and moreover, it is unaffected by Naxalite activities. Being agriculturally rich, its inhabitants are also relatively affluent. However, the number of severe acute malnourished children, if we take the data of number of severe acute malnourished children, there are around 3,299 children in the month of December 2022 affected by malnutrition. This figure bears a striking resemblance to the situation in tribal-dominated and Naxal-affected districts such as Bastar. Here, it points to the lack of proper knowledge about feeding practices, which is the cause for such high prevalence of malnutrition. The problem is not about access, but improper knowledge about when, how, and what to eat. This is why nutrition counseling combined with robust monitoring was chosen as the modus operandi for this area. Hence, as a solution to the problem, Pot Laika Abhiyan, which means Healthy Child Mission in the Chhattisgarhi language, is a nutrition counseling program that is being implemented in 72 of the most affected AWCs in the Bematara districts. This program has the technical support of UNICEF and the state of Chhattisgarh. Here, ground level staff from health and women and child development departments have been well trained on how to provide nutrition counseling in the region. Every Friday, the parents of the targeted SAM and medium acute malnutritioned children are summoned and counseled. This is how the program functions. As a result of the simple mantra of nutrition counseling, along with regular monitoring and evaluation, as many as 54% of targeted children were brought out of malnutrition by the 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥 Abhiyan. This was achieved in a span of 9 months. Further, 61% of MAM children and 14% of SAM children have been brought out of malnutrition. These figures are both encouraging and statistically significant when compared with a random control group of 20 AWCs where this mission was not being implemented. Only 30% of children were taken out of malnutrition. That is, 33% of MAM children and 0 SAM children were taken out of malnutrition. This shows a total increase of 23% over and above the control group. Further, providing meals requires elaborate budgeting and has the risk of leakages. But this mission is a zero cost one, requiring no more than a few training sessions and regular monitoring. Thus, it has shown itself to be cost effective as well. From the experience highlighted, there is no doubt that this model needs to be replicated on a larger scale across districts and states. By this way, providing food to the poor needs to be supported with nutrition counseling and monitoring in order to truly accelerate the eradication of malnutrition. It is only when this simple but impactful strategy of nutrition counseling is followed, that is both in letter and spirit, India can move closer towards achieving the ambitious dream of 𝐂𝐡𝐚𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐥 Bharat. So that is all about the article. This is the opinion which the author has conveyed in the article. So with this, let us close this topic and move to the third topic. Third topic, how unemployment is measured. See, when the periodic labor force survey was released in the year 2017, it revealed that unemployment rate of India was around 6.1%. This is said to be the highest ever recorded in the country. But in the PLFS, which is the Periodic Labor Force Survey of 2021 to 22, it showed unemployment getting reduced to 4.1%, much lower than before, but higher than some developed economies. For instance, the US unemployment rate fluctuated between 3.5% to 3.7% during the period of 2023. However, the economies of US and India are very different. The former is more industrialized, while our economy is characterized by large informal sector. As such, the methods used to measure unemployment are very different. Now, if we attempt to define unemployment, see, unemployment is not synonymous with joblessness. The International Labour Organization defines unemployment as being out of a job or being available to take a job and actively engaged in searching for a job. Therefore, an individual who has lost work but does not look for another job is not unemployed. If we take the labor force, it is defined as the sum of employed and the unemployed. Those neither employed nor unemployed, such as students, those engaged in unpaid domestic work, are considered out of the labor force. Also, the unemployment rate is measured as a ratio of unemployed to the total labor force. The unemployment rate could also fall if an economy is not generating enough jobs or if people decide not to search for jobs. This is the definition that is provided by ILO. Now, coming to the next point, measuring unemployment in India, the situation is complicated in developing economies because decision to search for work are constrained by social norms. According to 2009 to 2010 survey, which was undertaken by NSSO, 33% of rural women and 27% of urban women who were aged 15 and above and who were engaged in domestic work reported that they were willing to work if it were made available within the premises of household. This represents nearly 19% of rural female population aged 15 and up. The labor force participation rate for rural women that year was 27%. These women would not be counted among the unemployed because they are not actively looking for work. So, a definition of unemployment that focuses on actively searching for a job may underestimate the true picture in the developing economy. That is the reason measuring unemployment in India is difficult due to informal nature of jobs. Unlike developed economies, individuals do not hold one job year round. An individual may be unemployed this week but may have worked as a casual laborer last month and they might be working as a farmer for most of the year. Are they to be counted as unemployed? No, right? Know that the NSSO adopts two major measures for classifying the working status of individuals in India. One is usual principal and subsidiary status, and the next one is the current weekly status. An individual's principal status, whether employed, unemployed, or out of labor force, is based on the activity in which they spend relatively long time in the previous year. That is, a person who is not a worker according to the principal status would still be counted as employed according to UPSS if they were engaged in some economic activity in the subsidiary role for a period more than 30 days. Thus, an individual unemployed for 5 months and working for 7 months in the previous year would be considered a worker according to the principal status. Even in UPSS, which is the usual principal and subsidiary status, an individual unemployed for 9 months but working for 3 months would be counted as employed. The low bar for classifying an individual as employed explains why unemployment rates are lower in rural areas than urban. See, in agrarian economies where individuals have access to family farms or some form of casual agrarian work, there is greater probability of finding some kind of work when compared to urban areas. Hence, these definition of unemployment may underestimate unemployment, but we have to know that they were largely designed to capture the extent of the informal economy. In other instances, the Center for Monitoring of Indian Economy, which is the CMIE, classifies individual based on their activity on the day preceding the interview. They therefore estimate a high unemployment rate but lower labor force participation rates. This is because in an informal economy, there is a lower chance of an individual having work on any given day as compared to a longer period of a week or a year. But here one cannot say which of the above framework is right or wrong, as this represents an unavoidable trade-off in the developing economy. That is, if we adopt too short a reference period, one gets higher rate of unemployment and lower of the employed. And this also happens vice versa. This dilemma does not arise in developed nations where work is largely regular over the year. So the author says unemployment is shaping up to be an important factor in the upcoming election. In order to successfully tackle it, it is important to understand how it is defined and measured in a developing economy. So that is all about this topic. So with this, let us close this topic and move to the fourth topic. Fourth topic, CDSCO issues alert after pharma firms recall antacid syrup. The news is that the Central Drug Standard Control Organization has alerted healthcare professionals, consumers, patients to the voluntary recall of antacid syrup manufactured by Abbott India at its Goa facility. From this context, let us know about CDSCO from Prelims angle. Previously also, the news article reports that the DGCI had sent show-cause notices to 20 odd e-pharmacies for selling drugs that are not for sale, that are not for retail sale. This is a gross violation of rules under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940, which regulates the import, manufacturing and distribution of drugs in the country. See, a web-based pharmacy is an online system that provides a platform for customers to purchase medicinal drugs and e-services online. It allows the customers to receive medicines within a short time while being at home. According to the e-pharmacy market in India 2022 to 2027 report, e-pharmacy has emerged in recent years and proved to be a viable model in addressing the consumer problems and delivering excellent customer solutions. But however, regulating the e-pharmacy business is a big task for the government. We can see from the news itself how the e-pharmacies are misusing the online platforms to deliver drugs that are banned for retail sale. So from this article, let us know about the DGCI and about the Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940 that are mentioned in the article. See, the Central Drug Standard Control Organization is a primary regulatory body in India. It functions under the Directorate General of Health Services under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and it is also the National Regulatory Authority of India. Know that it is empowered by the Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940 and also derives power from the Drugs and Cosmetic Rules of 1945. It ensures uniform implementation of the provisions of the Act and rules, so to ensure safety, rights and well-being of the patients. They know that under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, the CDSCO is responsible for approval of drugs, conduct of clinical trials, also for laying down the standards for drugs. Then they also control the quality of imported drugs in the country. Then finally, they also coordinate activities of several state drug control organizations. In addition to it, along with the state regulators, CDSCO jointly responsible for the grant of licenses of certain specialized categories of critical drugs, like granting licenses of blood and blood products, IV fluids, vaccines and sera. That is all about the CDSCO. But how is the Drug Control General of India is associated with CSDCO? The Drug Control General of India is the head of the department of this Central Drug Standard Control Organization. So this is how the DGCI is associated with the Central Drug Standard Control Organization. Now, if we take the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, the Drugs and Cosmetic Act is the act of the Parliament of India, which is enacted to regulate the import, manufacture and distribution of drugs in the country. The primary objective of the act is to ensure that drugs and cosmetics are sold in India in a safer, effective, and it also conforms to state quality standards. Here, the Drugs and Cosmetic Rules of 1945 that is related to the act contains provisions for classifying drugs under given schedules. Then the rules also includes guidelines for storage, sale, display and prescription of each schedules. One more point to note here is that at the state level, there are state drug regulatory authorities. No, these are statutory bodies that are created under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940 and they fall under the ambit of the respective health department of each state, which means that these state drug regulatory authorities are established by the Act of the Parliament, but they function under the state government. So that is all about the article. In this article, we saw about the Central Drug Standard Control Organization and also about the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, which are mentioned in the newspaper article. Fifth topic, taking G20 to the last mile, leaving none behind. In this article, the Prime Minister has mentioned that during India's G20 presidency, the theme Vasudhaiva Kudumbakam has translated into a call for human-centric progress. As one Earth, we are coming together to nurture our planet. As one family, we support each other in the pursuit of growth and we move together towards a shared future. There is one future which is undeniable truth in these interconnected times. So from this context, let us know about G20 covering prelims angle. See, the G20 grouping, which is a grouping of 19 countries, and the European Union was born in the year 1999 only as a consultation forum. This was a consultation forum between the finance ministers and central bank governors of world's major economies. But following the 2008 economic crisis, it became a forum between head of the state and governments aimed at improving coordination on the main global issue. As a matter of fact, at present, G20 nations represent 60% of the global population, 80% of global GDP, and 75% of global exports. Know that the G20 does not have permanent offices or employees. The country that presides over the group takes care of all the organization and the logistical coordination of the meetings. If you take the objectives of the G20, they are like providing policy coordination between its members in order to achieve global economic stability. Then they also try to promote financial regulations that reduce risks and prevent future financial crises. And the third objective is to create a new international financial infrastructure. Now let us see what are the achievements of G20 groupings. I will list it one by one. The main achievements of the G20 include increased participation of emerging countries in global issues, the reform of international financial institutions, the monitoring of national financial institutions. Then one of its achievement is the improvement in regulation of economies and creation of safety nets in order to prevent economic problems like global economic crisis in the future. Then there are few examples where G20 played a crucial role. First is the quick deployment of emergency funding during the 2008 global financial crisis. Then its role in the ratification of trade facilitation agreement. Then G20 have also driven reforms to the international tax system. In recent times, the ambit of issues under discussion has been expanded to include climate change, agriculture, health, education, water, etc. Now let us see what are the challenges that are associated with G20 grouping. The first major criticism includes that G20 is an informal structure. See, it has no permanent secretariat and the agenda changes every year according to the priorities of the presiding nation. So critics say that G20 basically was an extension of G7. Then the second criticism with respect to G20 is that G20 influences decision making of smaller countries. The smaller countries, which are not a group of G20 grouping, are forced to implement the declaration and commitments which are agreed by the G20 nations. For example, the G20 nations agreed to end international financing for coal power plants. So, small nations cannot get any finance from G20 nations for new coal power plant, and these small countries had to use its own limited financial resources or phase out coal and look for other alternatives. So by this way, one of the criticisms is that G20 influences the decision making of smaller countries. Then thirdly, G20 is not able to address challenges within the member nations. The G20 grouping is not able to solve the issues within its member nations like the US-China issue on trade, US-Russia divide on nuclear weapons, etc. Then other criticism is that G20 has no enforcement mechanism. See, the G20's toolkit ranges from simple exchange of information and sharing of best practices on common measurable targets. None of this is achieved without consensus, nor is it enforceable. Then another criticism is regarding the underrepresentation of the African continent. Except for South Africa, none of the African nations is a member of G20. Then know that G20 declarations are not legally binding. In conclusion, over the past decade, G20 has been an important forum for international cooperation, but to remain the same in future, there must be some reforms in G20. Else, G20 cannot be an institutional remedy for world's problem. So that is all about the article. Now coming to the previous year prelims questions, we will be covering two questions here. Both these questions appeared in the year 2018. So listen. First question, with reference to India's decision to levy equalization tax on 6% on online advertisement services offered by non-resident entities, which of the following statements is or are correct? Statement 1, it is introduced as a part of Income Tax Act. Statement 2, non-resident entities that offer advertisement services in India can claim a tax credit in their home country under the Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement. The first statement says it is introduced as a part of Income Tax Act. See, equalization levy was introduced in India in the year 2016. The intention behind this taxation was to tax the digital transaction. That is, to tax income that are accruing to foreign e-commerce companies benefiting from Indian market. It aims at taxing business to business transaction. So this is not a part of Income Tax Act. A separate legislation under the Finance Bill was enacted to implement this provision. So the first statement is wrong. Then global firms that offer such services in India cannot claim a tax credit in their home country under the Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement. So this is also wrong. So the answer for this question is option D, neither 1 nor 2. Now coming to the second question, consider the following statements. Statement 1, Aadhaar card can be used as a proof of citizenship or domicile. Statement 2, once issued, Aadhaar numbers cannot be deactivated or omitted by the issuing authority. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? The options given are option A 1 only, option B 2 only, option C both 1 and 2, option D neither 1 nor 2. See, Aadhaar card cannot be used as a proof of citizenship or domicile since Aadhaar card is issued to all residents of the country. So it cannot be a proof of citizenship. This statement is wrong. Then the second statement says Aadhaar numbers cannot be deactivated. No, according to the Aadhaar Act regulation, individuals' Aadhaar number may be omitted permanently or deactivated temporarily by the Unique Identification Authority of India. So the correct answer is D, neither 1 nor 2. Let us wind up our discussion here. If you like the method of teaching and if you can understand the concepts well, please give a like, comment, share and subscribe to Forum IAS Academy in various social media platforms for further update. Thank you for listening.